Welcome to Case Unsolved. Tonight, the young woman who is leading a double life and was killed by a single stab wound to the back. But first, it's September 1965 and the cotton town of Oldham during the height of the swinging 60s. Bakery worker Edith Gleave was enjoying a night out, and tragically, it was to be her last. During the course of the evening, she was savagely attacked and her body was dumped in the shadow of a police station.
Those days there used to be a lot of people passing through Oldham because Oldham used to be a good town to be in. You know, I mean, there were groups, there were bands, there were all sorts in every pub, live music. And everybody from all over seemed to come into Oldham for a drink.
Everybody knew everybody. Everybody looked out for everybody. Unfortunately, on the last night she went out, nobody was there to look after her.
Edith Gleave worked as a packer at Park Cake Bakery on Ashton Road in Oldham. The pretty 38-year-old cut a glamorous figure to the other girls at the bakery.
Well, she was attractive to me. I used to say, you know about Edith, you do look like Bette Davis. And she used to grin.
Sometime in the week of working, you will get the chance of working with Edith.
Yeah.
But she was very quiet and she just plodded on and did her work. She was, a very good worker. She earned her money and she weren't lazy or anything like that. She worked very hard.
She got lovely long red hair, I remember. She had freckles. She was a smart woman. She was a bonny woman as well, really. But she was very, very, like I said, very private person. But she seemed to get on with men more than what she got on with women.
Mm.
But Edith had a secret life outside of work that few of her friends knew about. She was a single mother with a 13-year-old son.
I remember Mother worked hard. She had to. Weekends, usually, she'd take me to the cinema, to the fairground if it was on, to the park, or we'd just go for a walk. Anything I needed, she provided. Well, from what I remember, she was a very happy woman, liked to work hard, and I presume liked to have a good time, which I don't begrudge. I was never abused as a child or anything, so I can't understand why this happened to her. I was a bit of a naughty child in those days, and I was put into the care of the local authority. And the last visit from my mother was quite a happy one. It was a few days before my birthday. We discussed what I would like for my birthday. I explained what I would like. The visit went very well. Very happy. I was looking forward to see her on the following week, but unfortunately that never occurred.
But that fateful September evening, Edith hoped to put her problems behind her for a few hours. She was heading for one of her favourite haunts, the Albion pub.
I think it was a little bit rough downstairs. You know, like beer all over the table and everywhere. It was a bit rough. But upstairs, you used to go in the side door upstairs, go up the steps, and when you went up there, you wouldn't think it was the same pub. And I think you got a different class of people upstairs.
She was in a very, very happy mood because that night she must have seen a friend or phoned a friend, and she'd had a red dress delivered out of a catalogue, and she was really bubbly and full of happiness because she couldn't wait to get home to try this red dress on, because you worked overtime till 8 o'clock, and she just couldn't wait to run home and to see whether this dress fitted her or not. So she was very happy and smiling and bubbly.
She was on her own when we got in. And over the period of, what, an hour or so, there was two men at the other side of the bar. During the night, she went chatting to these two men. Last memory of Edith is, it's a happy memory really. She was in the pub, she was enjoying herself, she was having a laugh, she was having a drink. Like I said, as we was leaving, we were playing Unchained Melodies. So, to me, she was on a high. You know, I mean, she was happy, everybody were happy, and she was on high. And we just said try to her, see her next day for work, but she never turned in work, did she?
It was the last time that Oldham saw Edith alive. Her body was discovered on wasteland close to Stockport police station.
When Edith was found, her body was partly clothed. Unfortunately, she'd been strangled and sexually assaulted.
Well, when we all heard about Edith, we were just in shock. We thought, it's not Edith. It's not Edith. Edith hadn't been murdered. You know, Edith's going to come walking in at any moment. But obviously we knew Edith, but never had time off work and were never late, and it was Edith.
When we heard about Edith's death, we was all called together, all the girls and the men and everybody, and the supervisor said, well, we've got some bad news to tell you. And we all just stood there and looked at one another, you know, and stood there with his mouths open. What's going on like? And they said they found Edith this morning in Stockport, that she'd been strangled. So we just all looked at one another and we sort of froze, went cold. Your knees were knocking, your hands were shaking, and you was all ashen, white-faced sort of thing.
But for Edith's young son, robbed of his loving mother, the nightmare was only just beginning.
I didn't believe it. I sort of remember asking for proof that it was my mother, and they said that she'd been formally identified by my uncle. And I just remember breaking down. We'd only ever seen her a few days previously. No. You're bringing it all back.
The prime suspects were, as inquiries proved, to be two lorry drivers, or thought to be lorry drivers, both having southern accents, both probably strangers to the Oldham area, and one appreciates at that time that lorry drivers in Oldham both slept in their vehicles, in B&Bs and in hotels in some cases, and it made very difficult to inquire into their movement.
It's absolutely shocked Oldham, because I mean in the 60s things like that wasn't heard of, but I mean it really shocked Oldham. It was on there was posters up in windows, shop windows, and on doors, and it just shocked everybody.
On the day of the funeral, I remember that quite well. It was raining heavily. We pulled into the cemetery. There was police and CID behind the trees, behind gravestones, hoping that possibly the killers would turn up. But I don't remember anybody being sort of caught or questioned on that day. I just remember it being a very sad occasion.
Well, the police, they came to my home on the Saturday morning, CID, I think there were two of them, and they asked me questions, but I could only tell them what I'd already told them in work, down in the welfare department. I really didn't know anything, only that I worked with her, and I didn't even know she was going out on the night.
The line was followed that the body had been dumped by two persons travelling south. And the reasons being that, of course, had they really wanted the body to be found, They could have put it at any location and immediately dialed the police and said where the body was without revealing their identity. So that it was thought they were lorry drivers en route south.
I remember it was a few days past and then the police came up to interview me. I showed them some photographs of my mother with different people, asked if I recognised any of them. I only remember recognising 2 people on the photographs. And since then the police have never been in touch.
In one of the biggest murder hunts the North West had ever seen, police interviewed thousands of people and took hundreds of statements.
They went to transport firms, circulars were sent to transport firms all over the country. They went to transport depots in Oldham. They went into the pubs to meet transport drivers who were socialising in Oldham overnight. They visited B&Bs, they visited guest houses that were known to take in lorry drivers, and basically a lot of the inquiry, in the major part of the inquiry, was centred on find these 2 lorry drivers.
But as the months became years, the leads began to dry up. And 36 years on, the identity of Edith's killer still remains unknown.
It makes me feel sick that they've never been caught. I mean, someone that you know and work with, she still makes me go cold.
Just sad, really.
I mean, it was just a life wasted.
I think I was deprived of quite a lot after that time. I mean, she missed all the important dates, my 18th, 21st, my marriage, my children, my grandchildren. I don't really know what to say about her. You know, I know nothing I say will bring her back at all, so I just hope somebody comes forward. This time, or even after all this time, I hope somebody comes forward with any information at all.
Welcome back to Case Unsolved. Lynn Trenholme was killed by a single stab wound to the back. But it was only after her murder that her devastated family discovered she was leading a double life. Once a week she was Blondie, a prostitute, working Pinky's Massage Parlour in Chester. Lynn was killed 10 years ago, but despite exhaustive police investigations, her murderer has never been found. Lynn Trenholme grew up as the eldest of 2 daughters in Failsworth in Greater Manchester. Her parents divorced when she was young, but her background was stable and loving. It gave no clue of the lifestyle that she would adopt or the fate that would befall her.
Yeah, she was bubbly, cheeky, sometimes terrible, but still loving. Yeah. She would do anything for anybody, really. And she liked going out dressed up to the nines in things ahead of fashion. So when she walked into the room, all heads turned. Yeah, she was full of jokes, knew exactly what to say, and very loud sometimes. Not my cup of tea. But yeah, and if she spotted me from across the room, if I was in the same pub, she would shout at the top of her voice, "Queenie."
As an adult, Lynn had several secretarial jobs around Manchester, but by 1991 she was leading a very different life. Her family believed she was still a secretary, but in fact she was working here at Pinky's Massage Parlour in Chester as a prostitute.
Lynn's family were totally unaware that Lynn worked in Chester and other areas of the North West as a masseur and engaged in prostitution. So you can imagine the deep shock, the double tragedy of not only finding out that the daughter was murdered, but the circumstances under which she'd been leading what is in effect a double life.
Lynn enjoyed the finer things in life, and perhaps she'd seen the job at Pinky's as a way to make big money fast. The idea came to her while she was working as a receptionist for a chain of massage parlours. One of her jobs was to collect the takings, and friends say that once she saw how much money the girls earned, she decided that that was the life for her.
Girls done really well this week. Yeah, I can see that. Busy. See you later.
It's hard when you think your daughter's on the right tracks and you find out that she isn't. I don't know.
Sunday, June the 9th, 1991, and Lynn went to work as usual.
Lynn would have arrived mid to late morning, possibly lunchtime, opened up the premises, she'd have got herself ready and awaited to see who came through the door. We know there are a number of clients who used Pinkies regularly, and we know that there was a certain degree of passing trade. On the Sunday that Lynn was murdered, we know that she entertained at least 3 clients during the course of the afternoon. We think very strongly, we believe that there was a 4th client. Times would have ranged between sort of 12, 1 o'clock through to around about 5 o'clock in the evening.
Late afternoon, and a man waiting downstairs heard a loud thud, and then the sound of feet running downstairs.
A body was discovered by a cleaner who attended the premises just before 10 o'clock on the night of Sunday the 9th of June, just to tidy up and lock up the premises. The front door was locked. The cleaner went round the back through the insecure door, went upstairs and was horrified to discover Lynn's body in the upstairs massage room. It was fairly horrific. There was lots of blood. It was clear that there'd been some sort of a struggle taken place, and Lynn's body was found lying face down in the massage parlour. Lynn suffered a fatal stab wound to her back with a knife or similar sharp instrument. Unfortunately, we never recovered the murder weapon. There were signs of a struggle in the room, but there were no other injuries to Lynn's body.
There were, however, some vital pieces of evidence.
A lot of evidence was collected from the scene of the murder, and around about 230 exhibits were finally taken to the Forensic Science Laboratory for examination. Of particular interest was a stool, which had been placed or had fallen across Lynn's body. We found a fingerprint on that stool, which possibly could be the offender's. That fingerprint has been checked many times, but to date we've failed to identify. Also at the scene was a scribbled notepad which we believe Lynn kept a record of her business during the course of the day. On that notepad there were 4 names, 3 from earlier in the afternoon who we've traced and eliminated from the inquiry. The 4th from a man purporting to be or giving the name John has never been traced. Now, we would dearly like to trace John, who arrived, we believe, at the massage parlour somewhere around 5 o'clock. We're not suggesting that he is the murderer, but until we can eliminate him from the inquiry, we can't really take the case much further. It was a huge inquiry at the time. The lines of inquiry were to trace all the associates of Lynn, to interview all the other persons who worked at Pinkies, all the other masseurs, and most importantly to trace all the clients, which was quite a monumental task, because people who use massage parlours, and people from all walks of life actually do use massage parlours and use the services of prostitutes, for many good reasons don't particularly want to cooperate with police inquiries. The range of motives that we looked at ranged from robbery, because a premises such as a massage parlour could be seen as an easy target, given that lone women worked there. So that was one possibility. The other possibility lies with the type of people who use prostitutes and who do visit massage parlours. It's an unfortunate fact of life for people who work in prostitution that it is a very risky business, and they're dealing with people, many of whom they have no idea of their background, what sort of violence they can engage in. So robbery is one motive, just pure unadulterated assault and murder is, for whatever reason, is another motive.
In a cruel twist of fate, Lynn had been about to give up her job at the massage parlour. She'd planned for that Sunday to be her last at Pinkies.
Yeah, she was hoping to get married and hoping to stop this life that she was leading now and change it for a much better one. She'd met the man that she wanted to marry, and she was going to give up the night at Pinkies after that night and ask this man to marry her.
It's now 10 years since Lynn was murdered, but detectives are still hopeful of catching her killer. New evidence is being gathered all the time.
The inquiry hasn't really closed. It's a sort of inquiry where there's always been something to work on. We've had information at various stages from members of the public, and it's indeed at this moment there are detectives still working on the case. We have had a considerable degree of assistance from the public both at the time and since. For example, some weeks ago was the 10th anniversary, you may be aware, of Lynn's death on the 9th of June. And as a result of some publicity then, we got some very interesting leads which are currently being worked on. So if there is anyone who knows of people who visited or used Pinky's Massage Parlour, or knew anybody who was associated with Lynn who hasn't come forward, there is still time to do it, and we never know, that information that a particular person holds just might hold the key to solving this murder.
Pick up the phone, tell them you know something. You don't need to give your name, just give the person's name and let the police get on with the job. Somebody must know something, surely. Why can't they come forward?
She could have been anybody's sister, anybody's mother, anybody's daughter. There was nothing in her background whatsoever to suggest to anybody close to her that she was engaged in the prostitution industry. It's, I suppose, a sad fact of life that prostitution does attract people for all sorts of reasons. And to that effect, stereotyping prostitutes is a very, very dangerous game to play. We have no idea really why Lynn decided to do what she did. She paid a very tragic price, and so did her family.
It's very, very hard. Yeah, you can't put it into words. It's just in there all the time, eating away at you. I can't vent my anger at anything or anybody, yet. I've never hated anybody in my life, but I don't know what I'm going to feel like when they do finally catch him.